Good day to everyone. Today we'll delve into the fascinating history of language programs and policies in the Philippines. This presentation will explore how language has been shaped by various historical periods from pre-colonial times to the Japanese occupation. So the first that we have is a pre-Spanish period. So in pre-colonial times, the Philippines was characterized by linguistic diversity. Each community had its own language, which served as an important marker of identity and social organization. Aside from that, in this era, there wasn't a centralized language policy as we understand it today. Moving on to the Spanish colonial period, the arrival of the Spanish in 1567 brought about a significant shift in the linguistic landscape. Spanish was also introduced as the official language of governance, religion, and also education. Aside from that, this also led to the widespread use of Spanish, particularly in urban centers, gradually influencing the languages spoken by the local population. The key policies during this period include the Spanish-only ordinance. During 1768, it mandates the exclusive use of Spanish in schools, aiming to promote assimilation. Next is the Education Act. It aims to reinforce Spanish as the sole medium of instruction. Moving on to the American colonial period, the American occupation in 1898 marked another turning point in the Philippines' language history. So English was introduced as the language of instruction in schools and became the dominant language for government and official communication. This also the period where we witnessed the establishment of a formalized public education system with English as its core. Um, Moving on to the policies, we have Education Act 74. It established a public education system based on English. Next is the Taumasay program. It brought American teachers to the Philippines to implement English instructions. Moving on to the Commonwealth period. During this era, the Philippines made a significant strides towards developing a national language policy. This was also the time where um, motivated by the need to advance to the national identity and unity in preparation for the independence. The key policies during this period is or are the executive number 134 or 134. It declares Tagalog as the basis for the national language. Next is the executive order number 263. It mandates the teaching of the national language. Moving on to the Japanese occupation, the Japanese occupation aimed to diminish American influence by promoting Japanese language and culture while suppressing English. Japanese language also became a mandatory subject in schools, reflecting on Japan's effort to incorporate the Philippines into its greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere. The key policies during this period are Executive Order number 10. It is about Filipino that was used for teaching history and character education. Moving on to our next part, which is a table that consists of policies. The table summarizes the key languages, policies, and events across different historical periods in the Philippines. So the first that we have is the pre-Spanish period rather. So the policy is all about having a no formal and centralized language policy. The language was used organically determined by community and regional affiliations. And we must also remember that there was no imposed standardization or official language during this period. Next is the Spanish colonial period. So the policy that it has is Spanish was imposed as the official language of governance, education, and religion. The goal was to promote assimilation and control. So the Spanish people implemented this policy, like the Spanish only ordinance. It mandates the exclusive use of Spanish in schools. This was enforced through the education system and government administration. So the use of indigenous languages was suppressed. Next is the American colonial period. The policy that it has is its shift occurred with English becoming the primary language of instruction and official communication. So the aim was to integrate the Philippines into the American sphere of influence. So the Thomas I program brought American teachers to the Philippines to implement English language education to make this language easily to implement. Next that we have is the Commonwealth period. So the policy that it has is all about a move towards a national language to foster unity and national identity. So Tagalog was chosen as the basis for this national language. So the Executive Order number 134 or 134 declared that the Tagalog as the basis for the national language. Next is the Japanese occupation. So the policy that it has is the Japanese sought to diminish American influence by promoting Japanese language and culture while suppressing the English language. So the Executive Order number 10 utilizes the Filipino language for certain subjects in school, but we must also remember that the overall emphasis was on the Japanese language and culture. So moving on to the reflection, I think that the Philippines' colonial history profoundly shaped its language education policies, with Spanish and then English dominating, suppressing the indigenous tongues. This legacy necessitates a delicate balance between fostering national unity through Filipino and ensuring global competitiveness via English. So, language is essential to national identity and cultural preservation. Filipino unites the nation, while indigenous language represent a diverse cultural heritage. So, MTB-MLE aims to address linguistic diversity by using mother tongues in early education through implementation challenges remain. So using Filipino and English as primary languages offer advantages in national unity and global access, but also disadvantages in potential marginalization and limited access for some. So the Philippines must strategically strengthen the MTB-MLE to promote bilingualism and support indigenous languages to achieve global competitiveness while cherishing its rich cultural tapestry. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening.